to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as you know, and I've been talking about this for a very long time, there needs to be more media outlets that cater to working class people. And I've been saying this for a very long time. Our corporate controlled media really does a nice job. It does a nice job of pushing the corporate line, especially the conservative corporate line. You see virtually all of talk radio across this country dominated by right-wing bloviators. It's always been my view that you need working class voices to fill the airwaves, which is why I'm a big supporter of community radio all across this country. In fact, that's where the majority of our stations are found. And thank you to our community radio partners for putting the program on. But, when you get a chance to reach out to other folks doing the same kind of things, I think it's important. And that's why I've asked Cary Harrison to come talk with us. Cary is a public radio and a commercial radio host. His piece, Harrison's Reality Check, heard on more than 300 stations across the country. And here to give us some thoughts. Cary, thanks for taking time for us.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here with you, Rick, and I vote yes for what you just said.
Because here's the thing. I grew up in an era where, we had the fairness doctrine, so you didn't really talk a lot about politics. A little bit. There was, some little bit of trying at balance, and then the fairness doctrine goes away, and the right wing basically just takes over all of talk radio, and the left kind of just goes, meh, not that important.
Well, it's interesting you say that, and also I think for a lot of people when they were kids, community radio was talk radio. That was the community. And because of the fairness doctrine, a lot of people may not remember what that is, but basically said if you were going to do a Ku Klux Klan rally, I got to do the opposite, equal time. And it was remarkably taken away over time, and it was Bill Clinton, shockingly, who put the last nail in that coffin. But because of that, we are stuck with a right-wing megaphone from coast to coast, all the news channels except maybe for MSNBC, which is nothing more than an inverted Fox. And so that's even tough to watch. And we're left with these wonderful pockets of places where creative people can get on and try to get the real truth out. And that's what you do there, Rick. Working class people who are the backbone of this country. And we don't say that as some kind of platitude, but it's a fact. I work for a living. You work for a living. People watching and listening to you, Rick, work for a living. We're working people.
Absolutely. And when we started this show 16 years ago, it was with that in mind. The idea that you've got to add some balance to the airwaves and some different voices, because most of the people that we listen to, are multimillionaires who have a special interest at heart, and generally not my interest. So I very rarely ever heard someone say something that I go, yeah, I identify with that, which is why we started this and why I think, again, I want more people doing this. I want more platforms, more places to do it. For instance, one of the stations that we share that we're on together, KPFK out in Los Angeles, a big powerhouse station that look, they're struggling to make ends meet, which is why hopefully folks will listen and maybe send a quick donation to them. And we can get kpfk.org is their website, place to do that. But it's about helping them as well.
Well, it's true. And who listens to public radio? So I'm not talking about NPR. We're the original of NPR. NPR cloned the Pacifica network. So way back in the 1940s when this started, a guy named Lou Hill was giving out FM radios. No one had ever heard of FM before. And engineers called it freaking magic because it still kind of was stereophonic sound. And it was the organization that went into jail when Rosa Parks was arrested, put a microphone right through the bars of her cell and asked her what really happened, which is not what we were all taught in school. She was a cleaning lady. She was exhausted. She was trying to get to the back of the bus, but she collapsed in the front of the bus with a bunch of groceries and bags and stuff and was trying to get up and get to the back, but couldn't quite make it. And so it was retold as that she was, fighting the good fight. Well, she became a poster child. But because of public radio, because of community radio, always the brave ones to get the real story. And our like a pirate, our archives, try saying that 10 times fast, contain these kinds of interviews. And it's interesting, Rick, you mentioned going back to the beginning about community radio. I was in the room in Tampa, Florida, which is where I started in talk radio. They invented Rush Limbaugh. A guy named Gabe Hobbs was the program director, and he was in charge of all talk programming for Clear Channel. He brought us Dr. Laura, another gift, keeps on giving. Glenn Beck, who we used to have to yank out of the adult super center next door to drag him in to get him on the air. I mean, all these just crazy psychos. And we knew, we being that, the station knew that these people were going to attract the lowest common denominator. And it's really all about numbers. And then with the deregulation of who owns what radio station, they all own each other. And what happens? So the advertising that you can't sell on station A, you run on station B, which is owned by the same owner. So it doesn't matter what format, who owns what or what's said. One company owns the entire megaphone, and you make all the money. And here we are today in non-commercial radio, trying to keep it all together. And it's a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, because you don't get to play that game. You don't get to sell advertising. You've got to do it through donations, which is why I hope folks will go to kpfk.org and make a donation, because in this moment, we've never really needed an alternate voice, a reality voice, more than we see now, because we live in a world of alternative facts. We live in this world where I've got people telling me January 6th was, it was like any other day. It was kind of like a frat party. It was just tourists walking through the ropes. It wasn't an insurrection. It wasn't bad. It was just people having a day.
It was a putsch. Let's just call it what it really was, and let's use the German word, because this was modeled after what happened in Germany in the 1920s by Adolf Hitler. And I know, Godwin's law, you don't dare mention Adolf Hitler, but you should. Why? Because when Trump was divorced from his first wife, Ivana Trump, the core of that lawsuit, that's what a divorce is, you sue for divorce, what was the central argument in her lawsuit against her husband, Donald J. Trump? He was reading Hitler's second book in bed and memorizing it. His second book? Wait a minute. He only wrote Mein Kampf, one book. No, he wrote a second book called Meine Neue Ordnung, or My New Order. And what he did is he took all the speeches he ever gave from about 1919 up to about 1929 and annotated them and said, when you say this, the crowd does that. Say this word 6 times. And we know this because a professor emeritus named Bert Newborn, who was 96 when I interviewed him a couple of years ago, is a survivor of the camps. And he was able to track Hitler's speeches and Donald Trump's speeches, whether it's Mexicans all being rapists and sodomites and whatever all of this was, word for word Hitler's speeches, but translated sloppily into Trumpese. But that's why he'll say it's very good. It's good. It's the best. It's really the best. It's the most excellent and the best. 6 times over again. All of this out of Hitler's second book, which is why she divorced him. She was from Eastern Europe, and the Nazis were not friendly in Eastern Europe. This is the history that you and I need to know so that we can predict that future. When we see a putsch, we can call it a putsch and not, as you so cleverly pointed out, just another Tuesday.
Yeah, because it wasn't just another Tuesday. But here's the thing. When you have the kind of power that they have, and as you rightfully point out, thanks Bill Clinton for the telecom bill of 96, what they've been able to do is rewrite the history that we lived. And that, I got to tell you, that is really impressive.
Well, and it's effective. And, the problem for you and me is that we're not informed about what's going on behind the scenes. Suddenly legislation happens. It becomes the law of the land. It happens invisibly, and everything changes around us, and we don't know how we got there. And there's no way to keep track of it. You mentioned supporting KPFK. A really good idea, by the way. Let me make a recommendation. Who listens to KPFK? Who listens to your show on KPFK, Rick? A man named Vic Giza. Who is he? He is the top artist for Marvel Comics and Disney. He just finished drawing a custom poster for KPFK, which is going to be a collectible because there's only 100 made, period. Each one signed and numbered. And if you go to kpfk.org, you'll be able to get one of those, and that goes up in value. That's what we do for each other. We create value in our listeners. And your show, Rick, teaches us about the working guy, as if we didn't know, but there's no reflection of any of us out there, is there? There's nothing on CBS Nightly News. There's nothing on CNN. You'd think that everybody was somehow a millionaire living on a yacht.
But isn't that what we're
Those are
supposed
the
to believe?
guests.
Isn't that what we're supposed to believe? That we're all going to be, millionaires. We're all going to have the corner office. It's all going to be great. Because that's what I was sold as a kid. That, we didn't need to do those dirty jobs anymore. We were all going to be, financial wizards or whatever. They didn't really get us to the give up the dirty jobs millionaire stage. I don't know how you make the jump, but I was sold on this idea that, everyone's going to be a millionaire and everyone's going to have a corner office. It's going to be great as long as we don't have to worry about those dirty jobs anymore.
Well, what better way to get followers, as Donald Trump did, the lower third of the United States? And cultures are always split up into thirds. You've got the bottom third, which are the ones that follow Trump, that follow Hitler, that follow Kim Jong-un, that follow all of these hootenannies, the Putins. Then you've got the middle third that generally does nothing. They watch Netflix, they go to work, they have sex, they eat dinner, they go to restaurants. They're great, but they're in the middle. It doesn't really matter. And then you have the top third, which are the ones that you could say are woke, the agitators, the ones that march in the streets, the ones that write their Congress people, the ones that want to reverse all of this policy. And my train of thought just derailed all over the tracks. I think I was going to say something great, but I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Rick.
Basically, I get what you're saying. Look, you've got the alphas, the betas, and the epsilons, the Steele and Aldous Huxley frame. You've got the followers, like Trump said. I love the poorly educated, and we see a lot of that, every day. And those are the folks who want us to believe, hey, January 6th wasn't a big deal. The sad reality, though, is when you're in using that frame that you've brought up, sadly, the middle third is almost just as crazy as the bottom third, and controlled by the top. And this is what's frustrating to me, because as a student of labor history, I do remember Jay Gould's comment of, I could easily pay half the working class to murder the other half. This is what we're seeing right in front of us. What's going on right now?
Well, yeah, it's funny. I love the idea of a swing voter. Like, there's independents that just haven't made up their mind. Let's see, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. I don't really. Is there a difference? I mean, seriously, those people cannot even be alive. They're not sentient beings, and it's bull, to claim that they are. But there is a trick that goes on, and it's very clever. And we've seen it throughout European history. We've seen it going back to ancient Greece, certainly the Roman Empire, and it's that of the courtier. If you hang around billionaires and kiss their ass long enough, sooner or later, they're going to invite you to their cocktail party. That's at least what you're told. Is anybody voting for Donald Trump ever going to be seated at his dinner table or ever allowed into Mar-a-Lago? No, not under any circumstance, unless they pay a lot of money, and they're not going to get the job to pay a lot of money because they don't have those jobs, and they're never going to get them. They're courtiers, thinking that they're going to get curry favor from the king, but the king has no interest in these noble people.
So we get this now. So the question then becomes, you look at community radio stations. You look at this little giant, if you will, trying to fight these massive corporate stations. It comes down to funding, and I hate bringing this up, and I hate doing fundraising pitches, but we're in a moment right now where I fear there's kind of a lull. There's a kind of lull in the crazy. Everyone's like, oh, okay, things are back to normal. Biden's in the White House. We don't have the idiot out there tweeting all the nonsense. But I fear we're just in the calm before the next storm, because next year can be a bad year, and then 2024 is just around the corner, where we're right back in horrible. So I'm looking at this moment as the moment where we start educating, we start inoculating, we start building bigger, so that we can fight back when this craziness really kicks off in the next couple of years.
Well, I hate to agree with you on this one, because I wish I didn't have to, but you're absolutely right. I think we have presaged what will next come. Donald Trump is not going away. The Trumpkins and Trumpkinism and all this other business is not going away. It's not shrinking. It's not evaporating. It's not being buried in the giant shadow of Joe Biden. If anything, it is becoming ennobled, enhanced, and strengthened. certainly with the help of Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook and every other possible way. It is not going away. We are going to see major insurrections. These people have been empowered and they have not been punished. They've had a little Nancy Pelosi finger wag, or my favorite, Chuck Schumer, who pulls those glasses down to the end of his nose and says he's very disappointed. Let me define disappointment for you, Dave. Rick. Disappointment is when your summer cottage in Nantucket, in one of the guest rooms, the sheets have not been changed properly by the maid. That's a disappointment. This is a friggin' outrage. And we don't have a Democratic Party standing up for working people that's showing reasonable outrage. No wonder people who vote not Republican or likely Democrat are sitting in the middle watching Netflix and jerking off and just kind of being somnambulistic. The leadership is spineless. You've said it before. I've said it before. Do I wish it were different? Yes. Yep. So you, my friend Rick, are the example of this is what a spine looks like. And we have to do it, because if we don't, January 6th will be just another day.
No, you're absolutely right. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Cary Harrison, public and commercial radio host. GoHarrison.com, the website. Heard on KPFK and hundreds of stations across the country. Last little bit, because I want to hammer home this idea that we need to support local community radio. KPFK.org, one where you can help. One of the stations we're on in New York, WBAI. WBAI.org, by all means, if you're in the New York market, help them out, but also in your local community. There are community stations all across this country that desperately need help financing and also manpower.
Well, no doubt about it. As they say, if not now, then when? Unfortunately, there is no when. There is no second act in this. This is the most crucial time we have ever had in U.S. history, other than maybe 1814 when the White House, or 1214 when the White House was burnt down, and it looked like we were going to rejoin the British. Most people wanted to. They were done with this hideous experiment where they had to be accountable. Yep. We're back to that day. They want a paternal organization or a Führer to lead them and clobber the heck out of everybody else around.
Especially those libtards. I love that. But Cary, I appreciate the time. Great stuff. We got to have you come back and share some more in the coming weeks and months. Great having you on. I appreciate it. I look forward to having you back next time.
Thank you, Rick. A pleasure.
Thanks so much, Cary Harrison. Make sure you check out his work over at GoHarrison.com. We'll get links out on social media. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Saving work in America, one show at a time. The Rick Smith Show.